Now, there is something I'd like to discuss with us, and that is, people, I'd like to discuss how Islam changed, or the changes that were brought about in Islam after the Salaf. The Salaf are the early generations of Islam, which are the Sahaba, the Tabi'een, and the Atba'ut Tabi'een, up to the generation of like Imam Malik. After this, Islam, it begins in that kind of time, but really after them, it cements and solidifies as a different entity almost. Not as an entirely different entity, but the period after them are known as the Khalaf, those who come after. Okay, now the Khalaf, there's some religion, Islam during their time undergoes a huge institutionalization process. Religion becomes systematized, it becomes structuralized and institutionalized. It gets linked in with empire, with a lot of kind of, there's a whole system. Creed becomes codified. We now know what dogma appears all of a sudden and replaces faith. It's more about dogma. Madhabs appear now, and people start kind of, they want to just restrict people in all aspects. Now, this, I'm not saying has to be that this structuralization or institutionalization of Islam has to be a bad thing. I'm not saying that. But it does bring with it a new face of Islam. One thing you can't deny is the face of Islam is modified. This is what I would like to refer to as Neo-Islamicism. Okay, so Islam is obviously there, but it's now got this new structural face. It's got all these bolt-ons, and this now represents Islam. This is from the time of the Khalaf. So Aqidah becomes, it comes on the scene, madhabs land on the scene, empire is now linked to religion, religious expansionism, political things are well entrenched. I mean, some of these things were there before, but in a very prototype version. Okay, politics was there before, but the other things about the religion, so the politics earlier on was kind of almost divorced from religion to quite a strong extent. So Bani Umayyah were very political in their way and very kind of pro-tribal, but they weren't necessarily trying to push this whole Islam. They weren't trying to act like the ambassadors of Islam or linked with religion either. In fact, they didn't even really care much for scholars. But with the Abbasids, as the Abbasids start to develop, this culture emerges that locks in the clergy with the state. It creates a new culture for the clergy, a new institutionalization of the religion. And with this, there's a lot of things that go on. You see, Muslims in hindsight view the Quran like we view it with our understanding that we've developed afterwards. And it's important that we understand this point. So Muslims today, or even at that point, like let's say 1,000 years ago, when they started then reading the Quran, it was about affirming ideas that they've already now got. It wasn't so much about, it wasn't a blank canvas anymore. The ideas were already there, and Islam, the Quran, was simply now a kind of proving a confirmation bias. So let's say miracles or these kind of things or anything, people would now look into the Quran only to affirm the views they already have. So this era of Neo-Islamicism is interesting. And this happened, like I'd like you to, like I'll give you some examples. Like look, not about this, but just how we view the Quran with things that came after, and we retrospectively apply them back onto the Quran. So let's say, as an example, here's a good example, the word like ulama. Right? So the word ulama is generally understood as scholars of Islam. إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. In a verse of the Quran, indeed, the ulama are those who fear Allah. But you see, you've got to understand that ulama is a term that the Sahaba in the time of the Prophet didn't exist like this. There was no clergy. There was no ulama like that. So this sorry, I was just trying to... Alright, okay. Now, this... So when the Prophet read this to the companions, there was no clue. Who were they thinking of when they read the word ulama? Because there was no ulama. Who did the Arabs used to refer to as ulama? People with insight, with knowledge. Today the word ulama in Arabic, for example, is used for scientists, as an example. In general Arabic, they'll say ulama means scientists. In the time of the Prophet, ulama meant people of deep insight and knowledge. We read the Quran with this understanding that ulama is talking about the clergy. That's a perfect example of hindsight, retrospectively superimposing concepts on the Quran. If this is making sense, that's what I'd like to explain. Another good example is like Allah saying in the Quran, Inni ja'ilum fil ardi khalifa. I am placing a khalifa. Now today we understand this to mean representative. We understand this to mean, you see, in the time of the Prophet, they never used to use the word khalifa for like kings and deputies. So the Arabs, the Jahiliyyah Arabs, never used to say, oh, these are the khulafa, these are the kings. They would call them malik, kings. They would call them the nuqaba of a tribe, the sayyid of a tribe. They wouldn't say the khalifa. This was a word that obviously existed in Islam. I mean, in the Arabic language, it emerges after the Prophet. When Abu Bakr radiallahu an is deemed and given the title, the accolade, you are Khalifatu Rasulillah. You have come after Rasulullah. Khalifa means after. Something that comes at the end. Khalf, from the word khalf. Then what happened is in Umar's time, they said, we can't call you Khalifatul Khalifa, so we're going to call you Amirul Mu'mineen. Then this word Khalifa develops a political understanding of a ruler in Islam. So you start to get the Khulafa of Bani Umayyah and the Khulafa. So what happens in time to come, a Khalifa does not mean a successor. It does not mean a successor. It's taken on that meaning. It does not mean a successor. In that, it means somebody that, yeah, I suppose it's taken on that meaning. It means somebody that comes at the end of. And you could say, well, yes, you succeed him, but it wasn't necessarily about a chain of succession. It wasn't like that. Hence, they changed the term when it came to Umar, because now it's just getting Khalifatul Khalifa and Khalifatul Khalifatul Khalifa. So it wasn't about that, it was about the end. So something that comes as the end of something. And then it's adopted this understanding of a deputy. This is the understanding it's adopted in later Islam, in political philosophy within Islam. But then what we've done is we now, when we read the Quran and read the word Khalifa, we carry our understanding, which wasn't there in the time of the Prophet. So when the Prophet was speaking to people and read to them the verses that inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa, right? Somebody just saying, hey bro, I'm knowledgeable on this, behave. Hey bro, I'm knowledgeable on this. You think I'm just sitting here for you? Behave yourself, right? So the thing is, look, Khalifa, inni ja'ilun fil ardi Khalifa, I'm placing a Khalifa in the earth. This is why Khalifa here, the original understanding would have meant that Adam was coming at the end of something, that a whole chain of hominins would have preceded him, and he was at the end. Okay, so that is something for you to understand. Then this understanding of a deputy on earth and stuff like this comes much later on. It is through Neo-Islamicist thought. So through the understanding of the Khalaf, it's re-engineered and superimposed onto the Quran. So I wanted to share that tip with you, that look, understand this when you look at the Quran, try to understand terminologies when you read it. How would have the companions understood this when this was revealed? Because they didn't have these terms that we have today. And they didn't have that psychosocial narrative that reflected it either. So it's worth kind of definitely pondering over.